You are listening to the 4th and 40 podcast presented by Dorm Room Sports.
Extra bright, I want y'all to see this. Turn up the lights in here, baby. You know what I need. Want you to see everything. Want you to see all of the lights. Fast cars, shooting stars, all of the lights, all of the lights.
Welcome back to the 4th and 40 podcast. This is episode 5 here. Please be sure to give all of our socials a follow at 4th and 40 pod. If you like the show, please subscribe and leave a review on your listening platform. We got a lot to cover today. If you haven't noticed, I've taken it over Shitty Zach at host position, but Zach will be still here doing a little bit of behind the scenes stuff. How we doing, boys?
I'm doing fantastic. I mean, I was just waiting to hear this shitty intro that you came up with.
That was a good intro.
You didn't even have one prepared, so I had to send you mine. So
okay, well,
it was a shitty intro.
I mean, it was a good intro. I understand you had some frustration with our editing, Zach.
On the second take, maybe it was a good intro.
Yeah, second take, maybe third take. I don't know. We'll let the viewers decide how many takes that actually took.
Know.
Yeah, that's the point. But yeah. So I have to do all the editing of our shitty fucking podcasts, and it seems to be a problem for the other people in here. Luckily, the viewer and the listener doesn't have to hear what actually goes on while we're recording this. Luke, basically, anytime there's anything in a arm's reach or probably a whole office reach, he gets his hands on it. I mean, it could be a phone where he could sit here and just go like this or go like this in the mic for fucking 45 minutes. But Jesus, I have to go back and clean our track. Like, it's unbelievable because he doesn't just do it quietly. He sits there and puts it right next to the mic and just clicks and goes and goes and doesn't stop. So it just picks it up. I mean, extremely loud. I mean, it might be the most frustrating thing ever. And then you have our tech genius over there who just has electricity flowing through his wires at all times. So you can just hear all this weird buzzing occasionally. But yeah, that's all that's been going on in the editing. But yeah,
I think you forgot my fan, Zach. Forgot about that one.
Fan.
The fan.
The fan wasn't that bad because I could mass mute that when it's at a certain level. I can pick the decibel level and mass mute it, so I don't have to go through and clean it the whole time. But Luke's Xbox controller smacking it or whatever he does beats his dick on the mic. I don't know. But I mean, it's pretty loud.
All right, well, let's get started here. We got a big story today, or that happened this past week. We got NFL star, TMZ reports, NFL star Earl Thomas is lucky to be alive after cops say his wife held a loaded gun less than a foot from his head after she allegedly caught him cheating with another woman. He also was with his brother. Mark, what do you have to say about it?
I was going to let everyone else go first and let me go last. I want to see what you guys have to say. I still can't believe it.
I said Mark.
No, you said rug, but it's okay.
You said rug.
Anyway,
Mark,
I think it's just an indictment on...
Didn't we agree to say last?
No, you definitely said rug first, but it's okay. So,
no, Luke and I agreed on last. Luke and I agreed on last.
Yeah, you did, but Luke just said rug.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Oh, I
you
did?
Said me right now.
Yes,
I said Mark.
Yes, you did.
No,
I said Mark.
That's why I sighed like that. I tried to play it off.
Everyone in here is saying you said rug.
Okay. Well, I definitely said
Mark. Just get into it. We're gonna edit that.
All right, rug here, everybody. So, anyways, I just think it's an indictment on the Baltimore Ravens culture. I mean, they just don't know what's going on. Calling out they're going to win the Super Bowl at week 2 or 3 of the year every year. I mean, we just know Lamar can't throw the football in the playoffs. 2 4th downs, he runs in the back of his offensive line, can't hit a wide open receiver. Receivers drop balls. They're just not a quality organization.
Rug? I mean, Dave?
Honestly, I wouldn't... If he would have left it how it happened, I don't think I would have had too much of a problem with it. Obviously, like, that's something that's off the field. Any Ravens fan should be concerned with. But the thing that really bothers me is he came out afterwards saying these things happen all the time. To who? Because I can speak for myself when I say I've never been caught cheating on my girlfriend with a girl and my brother in the same bed. Just personally, that's just something I've never done. And the fact that he came out and tried to justify himself and act like he was the victim when he cheated on his wife and then she put a gun to his head. I mean, I just feel like it painted a bad picture for the Baltimore Ravens.
He was the victim. There was a gun at his head. I understand what you're saying, but he was the victim. I just want to set that straight.
He act like this fell out of the sky, though. And
that's true.
I mean,
that's true.
He gave himself. He had no accountability, and he acted like this whole thing fell out of the sky, and it just like, oh, I'm such a good person. This just happened to me. Like these things happen. Like no, if he wasn't an idiot, and if he wasn't stupid, then this wouldn't be a problem, and the Baltimore Ravens culture wouldn't be painted bad.
I know our new producer has a good video clip for us, producer Zach, that provides his actual comments just for the listener. Or am I mistaken? Does he not have that?
No, I have it. It's right here.
Somebody just hit me and said that I'm going to be on TMZ tomorrow from an altercation that happened with me and Nina. So just want to get ahead. Just want to get ahead of it. And man, it's really
what a smart guy.
Business. It's pissing me off that it got out, but it's the world we live in today.
Yeah, that's the problem. It got out.
Instead of talking about us, just keep us in y'all prayers. And stuff like this happens, bro. You know.
All the time. It happens all the time.
The way with your brother happen regularly.
Just pray for us, as we go through this stuff.
I mean, dude, it's priceless. I mean, his English is. I mean, the funny part is he can barely even speak English.
It's just icing on the cake that he's not well spoken, because it's already a bad look when what he did. This is a major problem. On Saturday I tweeted at one of the Ravens beat reporters. I replied, "The Ravens have a culture problem. John Harbaugh has become a softie." I think that was a little bit dramatic, but this incident really is a complete embarrassment for the organization. Earl Thomas did not assimilate well with the Ravens last season. In Seattle, his responsibility as a safety was just sit back and cover 3 and play center field, and he thrived at it. But in the Ravens defense, their 2 safeties are interchangeable. Their free safety and their strong safety will be all over the field. They'll be at the line of scrimmage a lot. He blitzed last year more than any years in his career, and there were reports that he struggled to learn the defense. In addition, he predicted a Super Bowl last year in the regular season. He shit-talked Derrick Henry and got his ass ran over. And then he didn't have anything to say after either. He thought it was, it's a big joke. Oh, I got ran over. Ha ha. And there's been reports he couldn't even learn the defense. And now you're literally having an affair with a woman and your goddamn brother. I mean, my God, how did that happen?
Just having a good time.
What led up to that? Your brother? Did his cousin come in another day? I mean, I don't understand what happened. It's just a joke. And John Harbaugh there needs to be something done about this. I don't know if I'd cut him, but with all these things adding up, you might have to do that. I mean, this is just such an embarrassment.
I think it's an ongoing problem with Baltimore. I mean, Matt Judon tweeted it out a couple weeks ago. Who's still sharing marijuana blunts after this Corona thing? Just seemed nobody really talked about that.
Oh, the horror
problem within the organization. I mean,
what a horrifying thing to say.
It's not a well-run franchise.
What a horrifying thing to say. Oh my God.
Keep it on topic here. We also about a week ago, Antonio Brown revealed a photo of himself photoshopped in a Ravens jersey. That really begs the question: would you want Antonio Brown on your team, Dave?
No. I guess a big reason for that would be I already have CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, and Michael Gallup. But even if I need a receiver, I just don't see what adding a guy like Antonio Brown does. He adds more negativity to the team than he does positivity. In the way I think that he's a psycho. He obviously has CTE after the hit that Vontaze Burfict gave him. He hasn't been the same. He's been reporting in locker rooms, amongst other things, and that's probably his least comment-worthy offense. I'm not going to bring up everything he's done, but I think we all know he's not right in the head, and I just think adding someone like that to your roster isn't a good move for the locker room, even though he does bring an extreme amount of talent to the field.
Mark?
Well, I wouldn't mind personally. I wouldn't mind signing him to a 1-year, no guaranteed money deal, because if he fucks up, then you just cut him right away.
I would not mind him in
years
Washington.
ago, he was the unanimous number 1 receiver in the NFL. You can't pass up talent like that, and if he screws up, you just cut him and let him go on his way.
Is that something he'd agreed to, though?
Well, I don't see how he has many other options. Nobody else is going to sign him.
Even if he agrees to it, I think it's the principle. I think it's the principle of you're willing to sign someone like that to your roster, and I think
People
you're.
seem to sign Josh Gordon every year when he's a proven drug addict in and out of rehab every
Well, I
couple
don't.
of months.
It's not about
They're giving him
principle. I mean,
chances.
every team's gonna sign guys who get better.
Well,
That's
Josh
always gonna
Gordon.
happen.
Josh Gordon also isn't calling his coach his owner a racist motherfucker and telling him he'd punch him in the face either. So he's also just
Yeah, I mean,
smoking
the
weed.
difference between Antonio Brown and Josh Gordon is Antonio Brown's way more of a distraction to the team than Josh Gordon is.
I don't know about
Which is-
that. Josh
yeah.
Gordon invents new drugs to take to try and
Yeah,
fail a drug
but
test.
he's
and
not a
let
But he's a
guy
good
who's going to go on
teammate.
talking and.
You're allowed to smoke weed now
Punch
in the
the
NFL.
owner.
He had to find a new drug to get suspended for.
Yeah, but he's way less of a distraction than Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown's on social media just causing problems.
Yeah, that's the one thing I would make Antonio Brown do if I signed him. He deletes his Twitter account. I'm sorry. I'm not signing you if you have your Twitter account. Or
Where else is
Instagram. They're gone.
Where else is he
What
supposed to
What happens
learn
when he
English.
says no?
What happens when he says no? Yeah, he doesn't get a paycheck. That's what happens when he says no because no one else will take him.
All right, good.
It's either
And what
he
happens when
wants
your
to be
fan?
paid or
What
not.
happens when he has 2 good games after he says no and he's your best receiver?
He doesn't get signed. That's the point. He doesn't get to that
Okay, he's
point
already
of being
been
on the
signed. He's had
roster.
2 good games. He's your best receiver,
It's a
and your
low
team's
risk,
2-0.
high reward deal.
Yeah, I mean, Mark's right about that.
Well, Rugg, do you have any more to say?
I think you have to have the right culture and the right organizational structure, like New England had. I think it was with the Ravens. I would want him if they had that right now, but I think they have a good organization overall. I don't want to sound dramatic as if there's some disastrous organization like Washington, but I think there's a few cracks right now where John Harbaugh just has to solidify himself as a leader and kind of regain his iron fist in the locker room, as Jimmy Smith was mentioning, that he's becoming more of a player's coach. And I just don't think the Ravens right now, they have a lot of young players, a lot of guys who clearly have big egos and weren't as humble as I hoped they'd be after the Tennessee loss. I don't think Antonio Brown's a good fit for them.
You mentioned it, Rugg. I'll go ahead, Luke. You mentioned it, Rugg. John Harbaugh, he probably has a little bit more of a lax feeling now. Coming off of those, you mentioned the Ray Lewis, Terrell Suggs teams all the time. Maybe when those guys first came along, he was that hard nosed, like get in their ass type coach. And as their careers progressed and they became veterans, they kind of took over that role for him. Do you think he's kind of lost touch with being that, like John Gruden-esque, like yell at you, like get grindy type coach?
I think it's a weird thing because when he came in there, Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and all those guys were already veterans. They were already leaders, but I think he came in extra strong because he wanted to establish himself and gain respect. Because even in 2012, after Ray Lewis retired, he cut Bernard Pollard because Bernard Pollard was kind of being disruptive and he was really one of the big reasons they traded Anquan Bolden. And I just think over the years, he's gradually become more comfortable. That might be a word for it. Even though he was on the hot seat before Lamar, I think he's kind of settled into his role and he's trying to let this young team grow a little bit. So I still like John Harbaugh a lot, but it's a little nitpicky. But I just want to see him make sure that he's being the leader that the team needs because they don't have a Suggs or even a Marshall Yanda and Flacco's gone. It's just a new era of football and it's a different type of team that he's coaching. He's not coaching that gritty headhunter team, that kind of dark horse team anymore. They're one of the most interesting teams in football, and they're going to be in the headlines a lot. And you just need the right coach to kind of help them navigate the waters.
I think the question that needs to be asked is what do you do in this Earl Thomas situation? Because he didn't break the law as long as he wasn't fucking his brother. He didn't break the law.
Is being gay a law?
It's just bad.
Yeah.
It's just
Antonio Brown didn't fuck
it's incest. That's it. It's incest. I'm talking about Earl Thomas. I'm going back to Earl Thomas. So what do you do because he's talking about the locker room and John Harbaugh taking back over power? What do you do in this situation? Like, what do you say to regain the structure? Like, this is just an incident where it's just like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? But like, what do you say to do that?
It's a good question. I think it honestly, it depends what's going on behind the scenes. I'm sure the whole organization has addressed it. It's got to be a zero tolerance policy. And he's got to show more progress in learning the defense, accepting his new role in Baltimore at safety rather than what he did in Seattle. And I think if he's on his best behavior from here on out, then there shouldn't be any problems. But they're definitely looking, Pro Football Talk reported that they're looking at cutting him and getting out from under his contract. But if they can't do that, they're going to keep him. And I think they're going to have to keep him because if they do cut him, they're going to have a lot of dead money.
All right, let's move on to 4 downs. We did this last week. It's a quick rapid fire segment where we all talk about less important news titles or less important news headlines. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Jadeveon Clowney got a contract offer from the Eagles. Came out today. So on behalf of Seattle, I'd like to say you're a piece of shit, Jadeveon Clowney. You should have been signed with Seattle about, I don't know, a month ago for about 15 mil, but now you're fucking us over. You're trying to take bigger deals from everybody else. Seattle's a great place, great culture, great seafood, and we're a Super Bowl contender. And you should just sign with us. Rug?
Yeah, so I'd like to talk about one of the great coaches in NFL history recently passed away, Don Shula, at the age of 90 years old. Don first was hired at 33 years old and coached the Baltimore Colts until 1970 from 1963. He coached the 1972 Dolphins to a perfect 17-0 season as the only coach in NFL history to have his team have a perfect season. He then coached the Dolphins until 1995. He went to 6 Super Bowls, he won 2, and he only had 2 seasons below 500 in his career as a coach. RIP to a legend.
Zach?
Yeah, I just want to talk about the man Greg Hardy. I don't know if every football fan was watching last night, but Greg Hardy was on the MMA main card on the pay-per-view for ESPN Plus, and he surprisingly has been doing quite well in the heavyweight division. Back in 2018 is when he joined the MMA and left the Cowboys. And Saturday night he fought Jorgen De Castro, who was 6-0 going into the fight, an up-and-coming fighter, and he actually won it when it went to the cards, and he won the decision. Greg Hardy is now 6-2 in the heavyweight division, and after watching the fight, I mean, I was surprised. I mean, he looked like a fighter. I mean, he looked like he knew what he was doing in the octagon. It was kind of impressive to see, and I mean, he threw some power fucking punches. I mean, those he was moving well too. I mean, it was impressive to see. I mean, after the win, he's just going to keep moving up in these cards, and we'll see where he goes. I mean, with a name like his, we'll be on some more big cards.
All right, thanks, UFC analyst Zach. All right, Dave, go ahead.
Well, for those of you who don't know, Deshaun Watson came out on Twitter this week, and he let everyone know that during his draft process, the Bears, who traded up to number 2 in that draft to draft Mitchell Trubisky, they had not talked to him at all, not even a little bit. Didn't contact him, which is really surprising to me considering he was a 2-time Heisman candidate and a national championship winner. All the qualifications, had all the numbers in the world. So what I want to do real quick is just go over their stats real quick. Deshaun Watson, his career, has about 10,000 yards passing, 71 touchdowns, and 29 interceptions. Rushing, he has 1,200 yards and 14 rushing touchdowns. And then we go to good old Mitch. Good old Mitch. Mitch has 8,500 yards, which is about 1,500 less. He has 48 touchdowns to Deshaun's 71. And he has 30 interceptions, which is around the same. But he also has zero playoff appearances to Deshaun's multiple, and Deshaun's obviously the top 10 quarterback here, whereas Mitchell Trubisky is probably not going to be a starter next year. And I'm in disbelief. I was in disbelief when they took Mitch over Deshaun, and I'm in even more disbelief now finding out that they did not talk to him in the slightest.
So staying on topic with Deshaun Watson, a lot of analysts, teams, coaches, they kind of have him all over the place. So I wanted to get everyone's take on where Deshaun Watson was on their QB list. So why don't we start off with Rug?
I'd say he's in the latter half of my top 10. Very exciting player to watch. I think his biggest strength can be his biggest weakness. He holds on to the ball too long sometimes and can kind of lead into sacks and create his own pressure. But sometimes holding on to the ball leads to him creating a bigger play. When I was doing some research on this, one thing I learned is that his pass protection last season was actually in the upper half of the league. The Texans' O-line was doing a really good job. And I think the motivation behind the DeAndre Hopkins trade was to try and Bill O'Brien mentioned having him go through progressions more and having him be more kind of clean in the pocket and not trying to play backyard football as much. And I'll be curious to see how that goes. But he's kind of just a high variance player because of that. But I think he's only going to get better, and he's definitely in my top 10.
Dave?
I agree. I think that placement rug is actually perfect. I think he's a little bit better than what Dak Prescott and Carson Wentz are. Um, I think he, like Rugg said, he holds on to the ball too long. Another thing is Lamar does this a little better than he does. He brings his eyes down a little bit sometimes, and he'll take off a good amount of the time before he needs to. And that's reasonable when you have his type of dynamic playmaking ability. Hey man, I'd even give Lamar an excuse for it sometimes, even though Lamar doesn't do it. You want to make the play, you want to get those yards on the ground, and he knows he's capable of doing it, so I can't blame him. But like I said, I think the later half of the top 10, he's probably in that 9-10 range exactly. I think that's a perfect place for him.
So for you two, what quarterback would you put him slightly better than, and what quarterback would you put him slightly worse than?
Like I said, I'll go ahead, Rug. I mean, I think, like I said, he's slightly better than Wentz and Dak, just by a hair. I would say he's slightly worse. He's probably slightly worse than. He's right out of that top 5 range. He's in there with like Matt Ryan in that later half of the top 10. So I'd say he's slightly worse than Matt Ryan because I think Matt Ryan's like my 8th best quarterback.
Yeah, you're definitely
Cody?
higher on Matt Ryan than I am. He's
Same
outside
here.
my top 10. He's for Deshaun. He's right ahead of Dak for me. He's about number 8, and I think he's right behind the Big Ben, Breeze, then Lamar kind of rounds off at around 6 or 7. And I think he's only going to get better too as some of those guys get older and decline a little bit more.
Go ahead, Mark.
Well, I think he has a lot of upside. I agree with what both Dave and Rugg said. I think he's borderline top 10, but I think with the addition of Laramie Tunsil, I wonder if he could break out of those bad habits of getting out of the pocket a little too late and throwing the ball.
I have him. I put him right after a healthy Ben Roethlisberger. Considering, I mean, you're assuming that all these players are healthy. That's where I put him. Was right after
Well, that's
Ben
normally what top
Roethlisberger.
10s are.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to factor injury risk into who you put in your top 10.
So what about? I mean, we all hate Bill O'Brien as a coach. So do you think him being a factor as the head coach for Watson plays a role?
I factor that in for Deshaun Watson. I think a lot of people undercredit the pieces around him sometimes. I think for a long time, because when you argue him and Dak, or when you argue Dak against anybody, usually the thing you'll hear is, "Oh, the team that this person has a lot worse than what Dak had," and I heard that a lot with Watson, and I didn't think that was necessarily true. I think Deshaun Watson has always had decent pieces around him as far as receivers. I think his O line's never been like terrible. Like Rex said, last year they were a little above average actually. I think he's always had the running backs. So I think, but yeah, Bill O'Brien, I will give him credit for playing with that abomination of a head coach because I think he puts him behind a lot.
Yeah, I think Bill O'Brien's the worst coach in football, to be honest.
Yeah, I totally agree. He's right up there in that range. I don't like the offense he's run for Deshaun these last couple years, and I don't like his rationale for changing the offense at all. I think he's gonna try and make Deshaun Watson do something that he's not as good at, and try and limit Deshaun Watson's playmaking. And I don't think it's gonna work well for them at all.
Are do you see the Texans still as the favorite to win that division?
I'm on the Colts. I think they're my team to win that division. I like what Philip Rivers is going to do with that O line. They're really committed to improving their running game. I like what they did bring in Buckner to improve their D line, even though they overpaid for him. Because I think their defense, if it gets a little bit better, they can do well. So I think the Texans are my. I think all three of those teams are going to be right, really close most of the season, and I think the Colts are going to steal that division at around 10-6 or so.
Let's segue this onto our next topic, which is the NFL schedule just came out, and I know we all have something to say about our teams, some teams that may have easier schedules than others. So let's go ahead with Dave.
I like what I saw from the schedule this year. I think before I started talking about the Cowboys, I think the NFL schedule, when I took my first look at it, it looks like it was made to make a lot of money. I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of good matchups this year. Usually, and the Thursday night matchups are a lot better than usual too. That's something I noticed when I
I
was
didn't even
looking
notice
through it.
that. Yeah, I didn't even
But
notice that.
I was looking, and of course, I'm going to talk about the Cowboys a little bit. Their schedule, I definitely think it looks very favorable. I think there are certain tough stretches, but you're going to get that in any schedule. There's probably like two, 3 game stretches where we got like the Ravens and Niners. I know in span of 3 games, we got the Falcons and Seahawks 2 games in a row. But other than that, I think just playing the NFC East, which is widely considered a weaker division, I think that gives them a solid chance to definitely make the playoffs. I think they even have a chance at getting themselves a first round bye this year. I can hope and cross my fingers for it. But yeah,
Mark.
Yeah, I think the beginning half of Washington's schedule is relatively easy. We start things off at home against Philadelphia, and then we play the Cardinals, Browns, Ravens. All 4 of those are gonna be easy wins. But I think things get a little tougher around Thanksgiving time. We have a brutal back half of the schedule: 3 road games in a row at Dallas on Thanksgiving, at Pittsburgh, and then at San Fran, and then we host Seattle at home. If we can get away from that with 2, 3 wins, maybe I think we're a borderline playoff team.
And right before that, okay, well,
Hold
right
on. Let me
before that, you guys
piggyback
do
real
have
quick. Let me piggyback.
a nice span of easy games right before then, though, don't you?
Yeah, I just gave you
Yeah,
4.
yeah.
4 of
Oh.
our
Yeah.
games to open the season are easy wins.
Yeah, 4-2
No,
two
before
Ravens.
the
Nothing
no,
easy.
before the Seahawks and the 49ers.
Yeah, we got another 3 easy games right before that Thanksgiving stretch against the Giants at home, at Detroit, and we host the Bengals at home as well.
yeah,
Right
those are
before that.
games the Redskins are just so capable of winning.
Yeah, no, that's what I was. Mark, let's be honest. There's a really high chance we could start the season 0-4.
Yeah, what's Dwayne Haskins'
Like,
number again? Yeah, shut up. That's what I thought. You don't know
Mark,
anything.
Mark, we're 9.5 point opening dogs against Philly. The Cardinals
And
will
that's just a
probably run
lie.
us out
It's
the
6.5
gym.
points, dogs to
No,
Philly.
He's
it's
actually right for the
9.5.
wrong reasons.
Yeah, he
But
doesn't even know his quarterback's jersey number, so his opinion is irrelevant.
no, here we go. Here we go with Mark saying my opinion's irrelevant because I don't know a
Hey, if Joe
basic thing
Gibson
about.
coaches the Redskins again, maybe they'll start 4-0.
Okay,
Yeah, they also have
but
3 or
anyways,
4 Super
calling
Bowls.
the Browns an easy win is just is blasphemy. The Browns are not going to be an
Blasphemy.
easy
Yeah,
win.
the Browns, not the Ravens. The 7-9 Browns. That's the
Yeah.
hardest team.
The
they
Cleveland
ever
Well, you
Browns
have to
have a
remember,
historic record of being a great team.
I'm not saying it's the hardest game, but there's a real possibility we start the season 0-4. But then I think we have a chance to take a couple wins, and then we play the Cowboys, and then there are those 3 games against the Giants, Lions, and Bengals that I think we have a chance to win. But I'm not seeing the easy start to the season that
Yeah,
you were
well, I'm
saying.
still not even sold that you even watch any games since you don't know anybody on the team. So.
Mark, if I remember correctly, a couple years ago, we lost like 3 games, and you were ready for the draft. You like stopped watching games, and we were still in the playoff hunt.
Well, it's
I
hard to
do
be a
recall
Redskins
that.
fan. It's difficult. Can't lie
I
to
don't
you.
even care
Yeah.
anymore. Just rebuilding. I don't care.
Yeah,
No.
we're just
At about week 4, Mark was already saying he was ready for the Chase Young sweepstakes.
well, we know Mark. It takes about 2-3 weeks from him to get to fringe playoff mode to tank for the top 3 pick mode.
I mean, you're not wrong, but this is a new era. Bruce Allen, that piece of human garbage, is out of the door. I mean, he was just cancer. If I wish death upon anybody, it would have been Bruce Allen in this world. I mean, he's just the worst human alive.
Rug, what'd you think about your Ravens in the NFL schedule?
It's really favorable. I mean,
Yeah.
they don't play one team coming off a bye. They don't leave their time zone after week 2. Based on win percentage, they have the easiest strength of schedule thanks to the shit-stained NFC East, which they get to play this season, which is going to be great. They travel the fewest miles, and they don't have to board an airplane for 6 of the weeks. 6 weeks straight in the
That's
middle of the
crazy.
season. I think it's from week 4 to their past their bye. So yeah, I'm really excited about it. The only thing with them is I think your first 3 games in an NFL season are very important, and I think Cleveland played them better last year than a lot of teams did. And if they do lose to Cleveland, have some jitters coming into the year, and then they lose to Kansas City, and maybe even Watson has one of his amazing games, they start 1-2, 0-3. That's the only scenario I can see them having a rough regular season. If they get through that stretch 2-1, that first 3 games, I don't think there's anything stopping them from getting a playoff spot.
And after they lose to Washington week 4, you forgot to mention
Yeah,
that.
Oh my God.
terrified of Washington. Really.
Well, you haven't
really
beaten
circled
us
that
in over
game.
a decade, so it should be.
What, we
Okay.
played 2 times?
Well, still 2-0. So
Yeah, well, that was 0-0 with Lamar Jackson.
I
So.
do hope the Redskins beat the Ravens, but because I just want to hear that debate on the next
I'm not very
podcast.
scared
I
of
mean, you're a
Lamar
Redskins
Jackson.
fan. I would expect you to hope your team to beat.
I mean, yeah, but I'm
the
a
team that's not
realistic
your
Redskins
team.
fan. Unlike Mark, I don't live in La La Land for the offseason. Then once the season finally gets here, I like realize that, oh shit, we're not going to be good.
Such a
I
realistic
kinda-
fan, he can't even name
I
5
kinda-
players on his own team.
Rug, can I ask you how you're feeling about that Tennessee matchup you guys got this year?
I want to kick their teeth in and then do it again in the playoffs. Fucking, it's
Yeah.
embarrassing. Ryan Tannehill, beat you down in your building in the postseason. I want to kick their teeth in, and then I want to do it again. I want to play them again in the playoffs. Like, I'll get a lower seed just to play them again.
Just so Lamar can turn it over a few times and lose another playoff game.
It's not happening. Lamar Jackson will win a playoff game next season. Mark my
Do
words.
you want to put money on that?
No.
Yeah,
We
that's what
gotta wait for them to
It's a
get
very
to the
odd thing to
playoffs.
bet.
bro.
I will.
mean-
Mark, you want
I
to
mean-
take that? I'll take
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson to win a playoff game.
What, for
Next
$2?
How much?
$2.50?
Yeah. We know you don't make real bets, so if you want to bet a gallon of gas, I'm not interested.
No, in all seriousness, look, I'm not totally confident because it's so early, but I just believe in Lamar Jackson. His improvement last year was so good. I think he's gonna take another step forward. He's definitely had some playoff jitters, but he was a second year quarterback. A lot of second year quarterbacks. Let's see how second year quarterback Dwayne Haskins does this season. Let's see how he handles his second season. He can throw for 3,000 yards.
Rug, I also
Well,
know
they
you had
played 6
an
games, so.
interesting note on the Giants schedule.
Yeah, I think for the whatever Giants fans that are listening, I think you guys are gonna have a lot of trouble. They open up their first 5 games, which is something that's happened to them the last couple of years. Their first 5 games is brutal. They got Pittsburgh at home. They go play at Chicago. Then they have to play the 49ers and Rams week 3 and 4. Then they go to Dallas in week 5. I mean, if they start 1-4 in that stretch, I could easily see that happening. So then they get a bye week against Washington in week 5, and then they have to go play at Philly, and then they play the Bucks at home. So they could easily have 1 win in going into week 8 or
Yeah,
week 7. I mean, they're in trouble. I think.
their over under is 5.5, and that seems pretty questionable. But
Yeah, Daniel Jones is if he's actually as turnover prone as he was last season, he's gonna have a rough season.
the Redskins are plus 850 to make the playoffs, minus 1,500 to miss the playoffs, and their over under is 4.5. Mark, do you see that as an over or an under?
Well, before I get into that, I actually wanted to mention I put a little future in on them to win the Super Bowl at plus 10,000. A little $5 wager to win 500, or to win 500. So I'm really looking forward to.
It's equivalent to taking
that.
It's equivalent to taking a $5 bill, crumpling it up, and throwing it in the wind.
Yeah, that's. I mean, you
That's,
you couldn't feel good about placing that bet.
Well,
You might as well
the
bet
49ers won 2 games before they went to the Super Bowl. So
Yeah,
I
I mean,
mean,
Put
granted, Jimmy G was towards ACL that year, but still, it's
and they
$5.
also have
Not
a
gonna
good
miss it.
coach, a good scheme, a good
Well,
roster.
so do we. We have Ron
Well,
Rivera.
Ron Rivera is a quality coach. Right, asshole.
I mean, he's
I'll
he's
say this: the Redskins are trying to model their defense after the 49ers with the way they've tried to
Yeah.
bolster the defensive line. The problem is they don't
Yeah.
have the 49ers players outside of Chase Young.
Well, I mean, that's pretty easy
Yeah.
to say. I think what they really did was just took the best player in the draft. I mean, are you not going to?
No, but that's not what I'm
Chase Young
talking
there?
about. Just with Chase Young, obviously that was the right decision. I'm talking about with Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen and Matt Ioannidis. They definitely made an effort to improve their front seven in the last few years.
Too.
Yeah,
Well, that was because several years before that, we had the running joke of the NFL in defense. We were bottom half of the league in defense every year. So we just kind of took the best player available the past few drafts, and it's really been working out. We have one of the youngest rosters in the NFL right now. We have a bright future ahead of us as long as Dan Snyder doesn't ruin things like he normally does.
Dave,
I have the Redskins, talking about the over-under, though, I have the Redskins getting a minimum of 5 wins, with 8-8 as hopeful.
8-8's hopeful. I think 8-8's best case scenario. That's like if
I don't
everything
think
goes
so.
well for Washington.
They could be, I think, Browns, Rams, Giants, Lions, Bengals, Panthers, Eagles. I think they could split with the Eagles, and I think that puts you at 8-8.
I see 7 wins as realistic.
Dave, the
No.
Cowboys over under is 9.5. Do you feel like the over's a lock for you guys?
Well, I felt like the over's been a lock for 10 years in a row, and I've probably been wrong about half those years. I really like Dallas' schedule. I think that over it's really reasonable. I'll take them. I actually have them winning 12 games this year. My heart tells me 13-3, but we're probably going to lose a couple. I mean, obviously, could we go 6-10? Yeah, that's possible in a year with Dallas. But I look at it. We open up against the Rams in that Hollywood ass stadium. I think they're going to come out. I don't see the Rams as a threat anymore. Personally, I think we win that game. I think we can beat the Falcons. We have the Seattle's number recently. The Browns, Giants, Cardinals, Redskins. Those are all winnable. Then we go, then we go to Philly, and then after that we got the Steelers, Vikings, Redskins, Ravens, 49ers. I mean, there's a few games on there where you see like the big time players and you want to win those games. But obviously, those are the ones that are just kind of up in the air and you have no idea with. But I have a really good feeling about 12 wins this year for Dallas.
Well, I mean, if you ask me, that's just a typical Dallas Cowboys fan response. I mean, Mike McCarthy pissed away Aaron Rodgers' prime. Dak Prescott's a below-average quarterback. That offensive line isn't what it used to be. I just don't see that team winning more than
And
8-9
so
games.
every aspect
personally.
you just mentioned about the Cowboys is a better version of the Redskins.
Yeah, and when's the last time you guys won a Super Bowl? When was that again?
Oh,
2
I'm
years
sorry.
after the
And
last time Washington did.
I'm sorry, you must have won one in
So
the
we've
2000s.
both been
That's
irrelevant
what I
for
remember.
25 years. That's right. We've both been irrelevant for
So
25
why
years.
do we have the larger fan base? Why aren't people
Well,
leaving
I
our
don't
fan
see
base to
how
go to
that
Houston?
translates to Super Bowls. It's not a popularity contest to see who wins the Super Bowl every year.
Well, at least
point.
I agree with Mark
I
there.
can safely say that my team isn't shitty enough to where our fans are leaving to go to the AFC counterpart.
Yeah, but that hasn't resulted in any more wins for your franchise in the
That's
playoffs.
fine. That's fine.
Yeah,
And you're the
that is
second
fine.
favorite team in Maryland. That's also fine.
No, that's
No,
Yeah,
I would not. I would not say
But to be
that.
fair, though, the DC area, Montgomery County, PG, and all of Virginia is always DC teams. I mean, Baltimore owns Howard County and everything to the north and east.
I know
That's
more
how it always
Cowboys fan in
been.
this area than I do Redskins fans.
well, you must not know very many people then.
I don't know about that one.
Oh.
Or the Redskins just suck and no one wants to be a Redskins fan.
The Ravens were 12. The Ravens over under is 12. I mean, it's a high number. Rug, do you?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at a number that high, you never want to lay it. I think it has a decent shot of hitting, but it's not something I would lay down on. I think they could easily go 11-5 if you get good seasons from Pittsburgh and Cleveland, and they compete for the division or maybe pull it out. I could definitely see a scenario where the Ravens, Browns, and Steelers beat up on each other and end up in the 9-7 to 11-5 range for all three of those teams. So I wouldn't quite go there yet. I think once the thing with the Ravens, they were amazing last season, but you want to see for sure how they're going to innovate their offense and kind of progress as a team in year two of after what they did last year. So we'll see.
Like you said, Rug, I
Yeah.
think those first 3 games are huge.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, something also to note: the Bucks over under is 9. So if you're super high on them with all their new additions, take that. But moving on, we asked for some listener questions this week on our Twitter. Follow us at 4th&40 Pod. We have one from a Lauren Grieber, which is Zach's dad. So his question was, why didn't you guys fire Dave for perhaps the dumbest comment ever that, quote, a team is only as good as its backup QB? Dave?
Well, hold up. I just want to say
I know,
something real quick.
wait. I know
because-
this is a question for me, but I'd like to for Zach can go, and then I'd like to hear what your guys' views on it, just so I can have something to respond to other than just the question.
I just want to start by saying, Lauren, you were a backup QB, lifelong backup QB yourself into college at the Division II level at Shippensburg. So I'm a little surprised you took that comment that way, being that, I mean, it was basically a compliment to you. I mean, you guys were half decent organization back in the day. So I was just surprised that you said that, being that, I mean, you got really good at dribbling a football on the sideline, being able to do all those ball tricks. I mean, I'm just surprised that you would say that, but it's open to anyone else.
Before Zach goes, or before Dave goes, I'd like to say something that a riding bench must run in the Grieber family. 'Cause, we all know Zach is currently riding bench at Randolph-Macon University playing baseball. So
College. We're not a university. We're college.
just something for everyone to know that it must run in the family.
Jumping back to me, I guess I'll go first. I actually wanted to respond to this. We actually had a debate about this in our group chat. I'm under the impression that backup quarterback is a very important position, and if you don't have a good backup quarterback, then you're not setting your team up for success. I feel like, yes, of course, when your starting quarterback goes down, of course, it's going to be a blow. But if you're willing, football is a game where people get injured, and that's something that happens far too often for me to just want to throw away the season when one player gets hurt. So if investing in a good backup quarterback takes a couple extra million, then I'm more than willing to do it. Just because, like I said, if I'm running a team, I'm not going to throw away my whole season and possibly put unneeded stress on my career in the future because of a bad season, just because one player gets hurt. I'm going to invest that extra few million in a backup quarterback, someone who can come in and win games if need be.
Rug, I know you had some strong feelings about this comment, Dave's comment from last week. We were talking about it in text messages.
I just got a kick out of Dave's impassioned defense of it. I thought he was kind of incorporating a little slogan that sounds good, but it's one of those things you don't actually stick to once you get called out on it. Dave went on a really impassioned defense. I mean, my thoughts about the backup quarterback is it's just wasting a roster spot if you don't have a guy like Taysom Hill or Jalen Hurts who's going to do other things. I want every roster spot to be used to be valuable, and I don't think paying $8 million, every million against the cap is so important. I'm not paying $9 million for a good backup, but I can get one for $3 million when they're both going to sit on the bench, and if either of them play, my season's over. And you're just basically the only scenario where having the slightly better backup matters is if maybe your quarterback is out for 2 weeks in the middle of the season, but that scenario just doesn't play out very often, and I'd rather not waste a roster spot most of the rest of the season.
Well, the roster spot doesn't matter until it does, as we saw with Nick Foles when he won the Super Bowl for Philadelphia as a backup quarterback.
See, I like pointing to the Nick Foles example, but like Rugg said, obviously that's a rare example. But my big thing is with what Rugg's saying is if you want to take that money that you could use somewhere else at another position, it's not going to matter when your quarterback goes down. Like I said, football is a game where people get hurt all the time. And if you're not willing to invest that extra couple million in the backup quarterback, then you're basically saying one player gets hurt, which is very likely, I'm throwing away my season. And like I said, I'm just not willing to do that. I want to play out every season with the possibility of winning a Super Bowl. And I feel like having a good backup quarterback is something that is very important to winning that Super Bowl.
But that's not what you said, though. You said a team is only as good as its backup quarterback.
Correct.
You're not saying
Because
having
a team
backup
is
quarterback
only as
important.
good as the player that comes in when someone else gets hurt. Because that's
But
something that's
you don't
very
plan
likely.
your season around that.
No, you don't. You don't plan your season around it, but you plan it. You still plan having the
So what
backup
you said is
quarterback
false
having.
then. Because if you don't plan your season around it, then what you said initially is false.
That's not true at all. Just because you're not planning your season around it, you don't plan for injuries, but you expect them to happen.
You just said you don't. You just said you planned for it.
Well, you kind of do. You sign backups in free agency. You draft for backups. You do.
I lied.
For
I'm tripping. But
all I was gonna say is you expect injuries. You don't plan injuries. You plan for injuries, and that's what you do when you sign backup quarterbacks. That's what you do when you invest that extra couple million.
All right, moving on to our next question. We got a submission via email from John Smith. He said, "Big fan of the show. I have a question for the one who is called, quote, the donut eating security guard, end quote. That was given by Zach to Mark. Do you seriously believe the Redskins are the best team in the NFC East, or are you just saying positive stuff about them for attention?" Mark?
Yeah, thanks, John Smith, for the really questionable question. But no, I don't think they're the best team. I just say that to kind of piss off Dave and kind of chip away at his Dallas Cowboys-sized ego. Dallas is probably the best. They're probably the best team in the division, but Dallas is not as good as they're perpetrated in the media, and Philadelphia is as overrated as they always are. We always remember that dream team with Nnamdi Asomugha that was guaranteed to win the Super Bowl that didn't even make the playoffs.
All right, well, we got one more question here. It's a Twitter submission from Brian. He said, "What are the chances the Colts win the AFC South next year with their newly formed defense and and new QB Philip Rivers. Rug.
Hi.
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on it a little bit
Yeah, we did.
earlier. I kind of mentioned that I kind of like them to win the AFC South. I think their offensive line is going to be a good fit with Philip Rivers. I like that they address, even though I'm anti running back in the second round, I think Jonathan Taylor will come in and help them a lot. I think he's a really good player. I also like what they've done with their defense. They're also already a pretty fast defense, but they solidified their D line. And I think they're going to be very dangerous in that division if Houston takes a step back and Tennessee takes a step back.
Well, I think
Mark.
it depends on what version of Philip Rivers you're getting. I know the Chargers' offensive line wasn't very good last year, but he threw more interceptions than he did touchdowns, and he still had some pretty good weapons. He had Austin Eckler still, Keenan Allen, Hunter Henry. So I don't know if he's past his prime or not. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Is
Indy's
Marlon Mack
over
back in Indy?
unders 8.5,
Yeah, he's still
and
there.
they're not the favorite to win the division. They're plus 175. Tennessee is the favorite to win the division. Zach, go ahead.
I mean, I like Indianapolis. I think Philip. I mean, if the O line holds up and no one gets injured again, where their whole offense is out for half the season, I think he's going to get to spread the ball around, and I think they win a few games. I think that over under is a little scary, but I think they have a chance to come out on top of that division. Especially, I think we all have talked about this, but I think Tennessee might take maybe a step back, maybe not. I don't know. We'll see what happens there with Ryan Tannehill if that ship still sails. But I don't know. I think I like Indianapolis this year. I think I mean they had so many injuries last year. It's hard to tell where they really would have been, but we'll see.
One more thing about the Colts is adding Michael Pittman is going to be really helpful for them. They've had a lot of kind of short, quick receivers. They needed that big possession target, and I think Michael Pittman has the potential to come in and be one of the more impactful rookies in the NFL.
Yeah, they also got Jonathan Taylor, right? In the second pair with Marlon Mack.
Mhm.
So moving on, so our plan for this episode was we were gonna ask Mark on the spot some Wonderlic questions, some easy ones, try to rattle him a little bit, make him look dumb. But he studied before it. He took a little practice test and he got a 22. And Rug also got a 24. Do you guys feel good about those scores?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty reasonable. I think it's right around the average. I kind of know when I took it, I was kind of looking for questions, didn't really take it fully seriously.
Yeah. Okay.
So I know if I take it again, I'm going to get at least a 48 or a 49, maybe a 50.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
that's just bullshit.
a
One
genius,
NFL
so-
player ever has gotten a perfect score on the Wonderlic. But
I mean, it's
actually
also
wanna
cheating if you retake
counter
it. I think
what
we should
Luke
stick with
said.
24.
Yeah. Well, to counter what Luke said, he actually didn't. Yeah, he didn't. He actually told me that they were going to ask me questions before the podcast, so I went ahead and took the Wonderlic, assuming that would just be better than them asking me questions on the spot, and thinking everyone else was going to take the Wonderlic. So I guess we'll get into that, and I wanted to ask the audience, the listeners, whether or not we should all take the Wonderlic and see who gets the highest score and shit on them.
I
I
think
think we all know I'll probably be the highest scorer on the Wonderlic. I mean, I
Absolutely
usually have
not.
the most common sense here. I would definitely expect if Mark actually took it again without cheating, I'm expecting him to be right around the 8 or 9 range.
You can't even cheat on the Wonderlic. It's a 12-minute
Yeah,
test
sure.
with 50
Yeah,
questions.
you like to say that. You like to
Definitely
say
cheatable.
that, but it's okay. You definitely cheated.
I'd like to
Okay.
think I'd do better than Shitty Rug and
No,
Shitty
Luke.
Mark.
No.
but-
All right, if it's Luke on his ADHD meds, maybe, but without his ADHD meds, he's not getting through question 3 without
No,
his
that's the
mind wandering.
problem. Is if I can
So-
take performance enhancing drugs. Because if I
Well,
can,
I got a
I'm looking at about-
22, and I'd missed 12 of the questions because I ran out of time. So if I actually take it seriously, I'm definitely
Yeah,
at
for
least hitting a
cheating.
30. Like I said, you can't cheat on the Wonderlic. You can't cheat
No,
on 50 questions in 12 minutes. It's just not possible.
There's
Mark.
no protest questions on the Wonderlic, so Zach could struggle a little bit. We'll just have to
That's
see.
definitely a fail.
Here
Yeah,
we
so
go again.
if you want us to take the Wonderlic and have us compare it next week, be sure to let us know. So we're gonna end this podcast like we end every podcast, unfortunately, with Rug's Corner. Rug.
Well, this one's not going to be unfortunate. This one's very exciting. So, the last few weeks, I've made Rug's Corner kind of a history segment where I talk about someone in sports from 20 or 30 years ago, And I've really enjoyed that a lot. And I'm sure many of you have, even if my
Yeah, who do you have
fellow
for us this time?
comrades
A Bill
don't.
Walsh documentary, little
Oh,
biography.
maybe in the future, absolutely. If you feel that would be a good one, I could certainly give a rundown of his life. But today I'm going to talk about. I'm going to kind of continue my experience with TikTok. So as everyone knows from episode 3, I first logged onto the app a couple weeks ago, and I've been one of the managers of the TikTok account, my little brother. And we've been making one little video each day. I'm not gonna lie, we're not doing anything high quality. We're just throwing pictures together, picking a random rap song, and
Do you have to sound 40?
throwing it together. And hey, would a 40-year-old get a video at 32,000 views? That's what we
Yes,
did.
I've seen a few of them.
Yeah, probably.
That's what we
Like-
did. We got a video with 32,000 views this week, and it was very exciting. I thought it would get more, but it stopped at 32,000. I was getting ready to be one of those famous TikTokers and whatever they do, and just trying to grow the account. But it got me into thinking to kind of learn about the actual TikTok algorithm. So it's actually really fascinating. TikTok is so popular because they're the first social media app.
Yeah, leave it to the 40-year-old to read into the algorithm of the website. It's really interesting.
So they're the first social media app to actually where your followers don't matter, because they put each of your videos out to a batch of about 300 to 500 people. And if your video does really well, they put it out to even more people, and they split it into tiers. So then eventually, if you get up to about, say, 30, 40,000 views, some nerd at the office reviews it, and they say, all right, we're going to make this video go viral or not. And with our video, they didn't quite do that, but that's what they usually do. And they basically also they rate every account with an account authority, and certain accounts do better than others, and we're trying to raise our account authority so we can grow this fucker and bring in more listeners to this pod. And it's been a lot of fun.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching episode 5 of 4th and 40. Be sure to leave a review and subscribe, and follow all of our socials at 4th and 40 Pod. We are out.